For a crazy adventure here, we're going to be paddleboarding from Fort Desoto all the way out to Egmont Key. I don't know exactly how many miles this is, but we're going through the channel and everything. This is the setup here. Wish me luck. About to leave from the Gulf Pier here. Just past the pier now, and that was probably the hardest part so far, is just getting out of Fort Desoto by the Gulf Pier, because that's where the channel kind of goes right into it. I'm approaching the channel now, but just around the beach there, got a lot of water trying to go into the bay because it's actually going up towards high tide at this point, so the water is coming in. So I'm actually going against the wind slightly now and against the tide as well. But when I come back in, because high tide's pretty much peaking mid-afternoon, I should be pretty much right at high tide. There shouldn't be too much of a flow coming into Tampa Bay. But the water has actually calmed down a bit from when I left the beach. Certainly the toughest part of this paddle so far, and probably will be, is just right along the beach there by the pier. You get a lot of different currents. First the wind, you get the pier, so the waves were a little bit higher, but now that I'm out here a little bit, probably about a quarter mile away from the beach, maybe a little bit more, it is not as bad. This right here is a prime example of what you need to be careful of when you're paddling out here to Egmont Key, at least from Fort Desoto. You are right here in the middle of the shipping channel, and obviously that ship is not going to see you if you're out here. So if you see one coming, either from the Gulf like this one or the bay, just kind of wait for it to pass. We're past the channel now. You can see the channel markers over there, maybe in the distance. And we're getting pretty close to Egmont Key. And what's nice is the water has really flattened out. It seems like, at least today, it might be weather dependent, that the farther out you get, the better the water is, which is kind of like counterintuitive, but I guess it makes sense given the tide and the southeast wind direction today. Because actually the wind is, more of an offshore wind, but as you go out, it wants to turn back onshore. So it's really just dead here now in terms of the wind. And plus, I think at this point, the current and the tide, now that you're on the other side of the channel, starts to get a little bit weaker. So definitely gets easier by this point. So I guess if you're trying this for the first time and you're launching from Fort Desoto, don't get too discouraged if it's very difficult the first quarter mile leaving Fort Desoto, because it has gotten nothing but really easier as I've gotten closer to Egmont Key here. But you should definitely hold off for a perfect day. Make sure to check the NOAA's marine forecast. The forecast for today is 5 to 10 knot winds with seas of a foot or less. I don't think you want to do it at anything worse than that. Maybe 1 to 2 foot waves, but I wouldn't do it in anything more than like a 10 knot wind for sure. It hasn't even been 5 knots yet. Just got to the east side of Egmont Key, or west side I should say, and it was difficult getting around by the around the south side of the island, or north side I should say. I'm getting my directions confused here. Yeah, around the north side of the island, where you're near the Tampa Bay Channel, was rather difficult to paddle. But now that I'm around the island, it's getting a little bit better here, but the current still wants to take me back into the channel. I made it to Egmont Key now, and I decided to beach my paddleboard here. So we're just on the northwestern side of the island. We came from pretty much back over there around the corner. And now let's go explore to see what they have on land here. So here's the remnants of, I believe, Fort Dade. You can see here, it's actually something that you can go and walk on top of, I believe. But it's definitely, doesn't look like the most sturdy structure here. Let's see if I can find a way to the very top of this. So this is the lighthouse, built in, see, 1858. It looks like it stopped operating in 2008, and there it is. You can't get up there. I mean, they might offer tours or something, but the walkway is chained here. There's the door with the code on it, and it looks like a couple birds have taken refuge at the top. We're leaving Egmont Key now, heading back to Fort Desoto. I was debating on going around the whole island, but I started after work. I was working an early morning shift, and I started at like 11:45. Now it's almost 1 o'clock. I still got a solid amount of day, but I'd like to have a little bit more time. If I was to go around the whole island, it is kind of a daunting task. I actually probably enjoyed the paddle from the south side of the bay, Anna Maria Island, up to Passage Key, up to here, is definitely a lot easier. You don't have as much current. On a good day like today, the water's going to be just flatter too, and you don't have to go through the shipping channel. So just, even though it's longer, it's probably a 7-mile out and back total, like 3.5 miles to or to Egmont Key. You have Passage Key you can kind of stop over at, kind of halfway, and not as much current, so it ends up being an easier paddle. So now I'm just going to head back to Fort Desoto. Back in the channel now, heading northeast with the wind, most importantly. Back to the Fort Desoto Pier, the Gulf Pier. You can see that in front of me, maybe. I know it's kind of distant. And you can also maybe see the Skyway Bridge way back there. You can see the water in front of me. It's about as good as you could ask. Waves are like maybe half a foot. Can't get any better than this really out here on Tampa Bay, especially towards the mouth. High tide is still kind of coming in, but it's approaching the peak, so the current is not as strong as what it was about an hour or two ago when I was coming back in here. Now we got some nice little wave action from that yacht that just went by. Well, made it back now to Fort Desoto. Just got a few hundred yards before we make it to the beach, and we'll be done. But overall, not a bad day for a paddle. If you ever find a day like this, light wind, in between tides, or I should say when the tide's not too strong, check the forecast. Not a bad opportunity to take a paddle out to Egmont Key. It's a very beautiful island. Not too many people paddle out there for a good reason.